entitlement. And then we got Brendan Miller. He's a outside consultant, third-party engineer with Westwood Engineering. And then Stephen Gordon, director of pre-construction. So excited about the conversation and looking forward to the Q&A.
Thank you. And you all came from Austin, Texas, except maybe, are you in Austin, Texas too? Outside consultant? Okay.
I'm Denver, Colorado.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. I think the next thing that we'll do is start out with commissioners. Who wants to go first? You want to go first?
I mean, I guess we can.
Well,
I thought maybe you were going to give them an opportunity to present their project and before we start asking them questions. But.
Really, we're only going to be developing about, I'd say about 10 acres for our storage facility. And the purpose of the facility is to store power during, peak times in the grid when there's an influx of generation from coal plants or natural gas facilities or solar or wind, and then intermittently put it back on the grid as that, wind's not always blowing, sun's not always shining, so that generation coming from those renewables, it will help, keep the grid more flexible and also keep prices steadier for the consumer. And this is we have a whole market thesis on the reasoning for this location, but there will be retiring coal plants in the area, as well as additional solar and wind generation that comes online that will be supplying energy for the area. So while it's not been a concern in the past.
How do they know that this wouldn't expand from 56 batteries to 75 batteries or 100 batteries, because you've got 20 more acres?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I can take that.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, so I'm Stephen Gordon here. So my title is Director of Pre-Construction, but kind of everything in the engineering side and the technology, I can help answer all that. And I know you guys have a lot of concerns, and we're here to answer those concerns. That's why we're coming here. It's not that we're trying to build this project tomorrow. It's a ways off. So we're here to kind of calm your nerves and answer questions as best we can. But to that question there, the sizing that we have is determined by the interconnection process. So we submitted to SPP maybe a year ago, and that allows us to interconnect in 2 or 3 years. So if you were to try to add any capacity to this project, it would be a 2, 3, 4 year process to even be able to do that on the interconnection side. So, first off, we're gonna have to have building permits before we can build this project, and that's, at the whim of y'all. So our layout and how many containers we have and what we're building will be at the, determined at the building permit time, as well as the size of the project being determined by the interconnection process.
That wasn't the question that I heard. It was, what will the future owners, how do we know that the future owners won't expand, not this particular project?
So the future owners won't be able to expand in this area because of the interconnection process. So when we submit to this process, we submit to a process that is, through the government, through SPP and the Southwest Power Pool. There's multiple years to be able to go through that process, so you can't just add more batteries into this process. Any other project that would come here would have to come back to y'all here and get approval, and specifically. So, we try to get as close to that substation as possible to reduce the overhead transmission line, so we can jump right into that substation, so we don't have to build any more transmission lines across the county to get back to that substation, which is why we try to go as close to that substation as possible. So yeah, that's what.
And so when you talk about congestion, I understand a little bit that. I got allergies right now. I got some congestion, but none of us people, none of us people know that we have congestion in our electrical lines, because we don't have blackouts like some parts of the country.
Yeah.
And so we're not feeling that problem. And so that's just some of the comments that I picked up on is why this particular place, when we have, I would say just about everyone here today is a homeowner somewhere out there close to, how many people live close to this area? okay, so, yeah, lot, okay, and so I guess know whether this county would have all the control that we need to have. Just thinking about humming noise. I know there's people in this room that have ear issues where they always have a ringing in their ears. If you've ever had that, which I've had that at times, is a very uncomfortable feeling. And a humming noise that's 365, 24 hours a day could be just really detrimental, I think. I'd almost like for you all to record with a tape recorder or some type of device and bring it back and let us hear what people are going to hear 24 hours a day, 365. Have you ever thought about letting people know what that sound would be like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the main source of sound in these containers is an air conditioner. So the sound that you hear with an air conditioner is the sound that you'll hear from excuse me? Yeah, so
When you're 1,000 feet away, it's pretty loud.
So the air conditioners are going to be out there in the middle of this field, and that is the humming that you'll hear would be the sound of an air conditioner. There's already sound of a substation going on right there. That substation makes sound as well currently, and this will be adding to that. But there's already things out there making sound. There's houses with air conditioners sitting out there that are much bigger than the air conditioners that we have in these small containers.
They're not small containers, they're tractor trailer size.
They're
Quite different than a house.
right.
Let's not minimize that.
Okay, all right, that's okay, that's fine. So anyway, that's a concern, I'm just gonna close it with this. Somewhere in this discussion today, I wanna hear what is it really a plus for Christian County. We've got our assessor here, you guys gave us some financial numbers that he's worked with, so it's not our numbers from the county's perspective, it's your numbers that you've given us, and if someone wants Mr. Gray to comment on that, you guys could ask for that. We also have Mr. Matheny, our fire chief at Ozark, tremendously a guy that absolutely knows fire safety and science, and he's done some research too. So if you guys would want him to speak today, you could ask for that. But I mean, for a lot of us, we look for what is it going to be in for us? What can we get? When you guys mentioned 100 to 150 jobs, we're not going to have any jobs after the construction process. When you talk about construction jobs, that could be over 100 people. I don't think from Christian County or even Greene County, most of those people are going to come from someplace else. You know the history of how you built the buildings, and we may have some concrete work, we may have some groundwork and stuff like that. That would provide a job, but these are not permanent jobs. And so what I've seen out there in emails is, where's the permanent jobs? You're not going to, all your devices are, and they're very sophisticated, and they're going to be gauging everything all the time and sending that data someplace else. So you don't have someone watching the data, all those, machines right now. You're not going to be seeing that. So nobody's going to be doing that here in this county. I imagine you probably have a couple people, maybe if something goes on this hard, just to take care of a call or something like that. But again, that's what I've heard out there. So at some point today, we might want to address. I don't think it's going to save our citizens any money on electricity, because I know everybody's in it to make money, and the companies that are buying at the low price are going to sell it at a higher price, and they're probably not going to discount the citizens in this area. So we're going to still pay whatever the high price is. And we all know, when you talk about Empire Substation, District Substation, I didn't realize, so Empire District was a good electric company that we dealt with, and our rates were lower, much lower. And now we deal with a company out of Canada, and our rates are much higher, and they go up much higher every time. And if you ever can't pay your bill, they'll shut you off. And Empire did not do that. As a state rep, I saw 8 years that I could always get money and get those people taken care of and get 3 extra months paid, and they would always work with us. But Liberty does not do that. So we don't know who's going to be buying this thing, but I'm just telling you, those are the concerns. That's my concern, but I'm just speaking for all those people. Okay? So,
I can
Okay.
comment, I
All
won't
right.
speak for Mr. Jackson.
Okay.
Are the people here that's not representing this company and not representing those that are against? Because I've gotten wonderful information, a plethora of information from folks that are opposed. But we've got some folks here that are
Favor.
supportive,
Yes.
and I would withhold my comments
Okay.
until after I hear those folks.
okay, perfect. Okay, who wants to speak first?
See if he-
Who wants to speak?
See if he has a comment first.
Yeah.
Well, I did have a question
Yeah.
for
Okay,
Black Mountain.
sure.
You want to handle
Yeah,
it?
sure.
All right. So one of the questions that I had, you talked in your earlier statement, well, I'll go back and preface, you were saying Empire District Electric owns the substation. That's Liberty Utilities. That's the Canadian-based company. So I just wanted to correct you a little bit there. Liberty Utilities owns the substation. They're based out of Canada, and everything that Commissioner Morris has said about their business has lived up to be correct to what he's saying. There is a representative from Liberty Utilities in the room today, and we may call upon her to see if she has any information with regards to this project. But you had mentioned that the storage of power in this site will intermittently be released back onto the grid. Can you explain intermittently to me? Because you're doing a $100 million project that's going to be taxed. And if you're intermittently, to me, that means every once in a while we're going to put power on the grid. I'm a business owner. Everything to me is dollars and cents. How do you make money? How do you get your return on your investment? Well, you're going to get your return because you're going to sell it off to somebody else. But how are they going to get their return on their investment other than through the Green New Deal, which is our tax dollars subsidizing them?
Yeah, so we make we make strategic partnerships with people who operate these projects. We take them through development, just the way that anything else in other industries would be developed. We might not be the eventual owner operator, but we have skin in the game, to the end of the project. The way that it makes money is by, buying energy when you guys are sleeping in the middle of the day, and then releasing it back to the grid, in the hours where y'all need it. So when everyone's sleeping at night and there's no one's using electricity and all the lights are off, the power is very low. That's when the battery will charge. The battery will be sitting there, and then when the grid needs it, it'll put it back. So intermittently is
Daily.
Yeah, it'll usually go 1 cycle per day. Is usually what.
Intermittently is daily.
Yeah,
Okay.
usually.
All right.
Yeah.
So you're going to be buying when it's low during the middle of the night, turn around and selling it back into the grid during the daytime when it's high.
Yeah.
We're on peak usage now, so we don't have a flat rate
Okay. Yep.
in this area anymore. So now is that going to cause, now that you're going to be pulling electricity in the night, is that going to become a peak time for everybody that's using electricity? So now when we're in the middle of the night, our usage is going to be higher where currently it's lower?
I don't know the specifics of your guys' peak usage, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but I would say one battery project is not going to, our battery project charging for 4 hours, I wouldn't suspect would put y'all in peak usage, but I don't.
What about the electricity used for the air conditioning and heating of each individual battery unit? How much electricity does that use?
Well, I don't have that number directly off
Why
the
not?
top.
You're an engineer. You
Okay, hold on. Let's be fair. Everybody's going to get their opportunity to speak. I don't want to cut anybody off.
It's good to have a rebuttal right when they're saying it because people
Sure.
will forget.
Sure. I had to sit through Commissioner Morris for 15 minutes to get my rebuttal, so, no offense, sir. So I guess at this point, that answered those 2 questions. I'm sure I'll have more, but I wanted to get them on their top of mind. So is there anyone in here in the audience that's here to speak on behalf of this project?
Very well, but I don't know everybody here. My name is Kristen Hazeltine. I'm with Show Me Christian County. We are the economic development organization for the entire county. We have partnerships with the commission, with the cities of Nixon and Ozark, and as well as the private industry. So we are about a 50-50 mix about how we are made up as an organization. And so I share that because whenever this project came about almost a year ago, we were informed about it. And so we started investigating and started looking at it, seeking professional input from across the state. We have even gone to Eagle Pitcher, which is in Joplin. They actually produce lithium-ion batteries. We have talked with, I think, a minimum of 6 different utility partners, Liberty included, as well as cooperatives. We've talked to regional, as well as statewide, different groups. So we feel like we have been in lots of conversations, done research. And honestly, I'm going to point Todd out because Todd did an amazing job at creating a summary of this project and addressing some of the concerns, and provided all of the resources that he used during his research. And so based upon a lot of that research and investigation and everything that we've done, and including, which I'm going to point out, Danny Gray, the financial impact as well. So there were 3 main things that whenever we looked at this that we wanted to comment on because of the economic impact. And one I know was the construction jobs. Like that was something that, yes, that's the point of the construction industry, is to have a project
Possibly $96 million in personal property. That will be set up on a 20-year depreciation schedule. In this particular case, the first year tax dollars would be 1.784 on personal property. The real estate tax value would be at $315,000. First year's value would be about $2.1 million. That is a depreciable number. So over the course of the 20 years that she was talking about, we're dropping at a little over $100,000 in tax dollars per year. The problem to project it out that far, it's really hard to do. They're going to have batteries go bad. They're going to have things they have to replace. That life on those things will change, so it'll start all over on some of that stuff. But currently, based on the numbers I received, it would be taxes of about $2.1 million. Is there a question on that? Yes, sir.
And who gave you those numbers?
That came from Black Mountain.
Gotcha.
Yes, that's all I have. I have nothing else to go on.
I understand.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So at the last meeting, we were led to believe that it had not been determined if this was going to be taxed as personal property or in some other manner. So has that decision been made?
Well, these are a depreciable item. Batteries are something that have a life. It's opposed to real estate doesn't have a life. It doesn't have a depreciable factor, but those batteries do. So the same thing if we did solar. Solar does the same thing. It has a depreciable life.
So it would
Solar
be,
panels.
you'll tax this as personal property and
Not as real estate, right. And there's kind of some other things that come into play based on whether we look at personal property or not, or how those are attached to the ground. These, I understand, are storage facilities. They could probably clarify this. I was told that these were like large storage facilities. The batteries, they actually buy them with the batteries inside the storage facilities. They buy those from a company that does that. So the best way to do that is personal properties. Any other questions on that?
Danny, if that was personal property, then would the taxes on that go to schools?
Yeah, it's 2 things. On the real estate side of that, we will be taxing that as commercial property. It has a surtax on it, so the levy is higher on commercial property. But where it's on personal property, that's not the case. But the distribution is the same. The schools are going to receive somewhere between 72 and 75% of that 2.1 million.
Okay, thank you.
I think one thing that we should be thinking about and remembering, there is a large push. There is a candidate running for governor that's been running on the premise of no more personal property tax. If that is a measure that gets through the system and there's no more personal property tax in the state of Missouri, there would be 0 revenue coming in off these units.
Got a quick question. Batteries are personal property and they are now taxable. So what determines that batteries, like we pay personal property taxes on our cars, on our boat, on our little trailer. So where does the batteries come into it? If I put a Tesla battery on my house, Do I have to start paying personal property taxes on that also? Where does this come from?
Well, because this is a utility company. They're actually a utility company. When they're selling back to the grid, it's a commercial business. You're not, and neither are we with solar panels. We don't tax solar panels on your house. We do tax solar panels that are a solar farm that are generating to the grid, that they're actually a commercial business, and they're a utility company. That's the difference, but, yeah.
Oh, no, I have a different question.
Any more questions for me? Thank you, guys.
And just trying to find out what you need to know and what we all need to know about safety.
I'm gonna present some facts. My job as the fire chief is to protect our citizens and our firefighters. We've had several meetings with the company to so that we can ask some questions, but I want to clarify what our role is. Once, we have not seen specific plans. Once those plans are submitted to us, it then goes through the permitting process, whether it's with the city or the county. We go through that plan review process. And there are three very important elements that we look at in that planning process or that permitting process. It's the National Fire Protection Association. They have an NFPA standard, NFPA 855, that outlines fire protection, construction requirements, basically an emergency response protocols for battery energy supply systems. We also look at the International Fire Code. The most current edition is the International Fire Code from the 2024 edition. Now, the county has only adopted the 2012 edition. That's probably another conversation we need to have at another date. But since this falls under new and emerging technology, 2012 edition didn't hardly even address lithium batteries at the time. So we would enforce the most current, I don't know if I have the authority to do that, but I would certainly push for that, the most current edition of the International Fire Code. The third element that we look at is there's an underwriter's laboratory testing mechanism to these containers. So they do burn test. We would make sure that the containers, these storage containers, met the most current lab testing from the underwriter's laboratory. Those are the three elements that we look at, particularly for me. What I want to know is emergency response protocols for our firefighters. Most of you are familiar with the runaway incident that occurred in Surprise, Arizona. When those containers, when there is a runaway incident and they're opened up and air is introduced to them, that is when a fire will occur. So it would be very important for our firefighters to know exactly how to respond, and that's my commitment to our community, is that we will have current protocols for that response. The other element is there was some confusion, and I want to clarify this, that initially the conversations that we received that there would be fire suppression systems in each container, and that is not true. There will not be fire suppression systems, and that's based on the NFPA 855 recommendation is that water should not be used to fight fire when these are on fire, okay? So we would not use water. We would not even fight the fire, to be honest with you, but we would do a property protection around it. So therefore, I would need a large supply of water. Okay, and currently we don't have a water supply in this area to do that. So when the permitting process, if it were approved, and the permitting process would go through, it would be our priority to ensure that there's an adequate supply of water to protect the area. Those are my concerns. We've had several meetings with them. I've actually contracted with my own fire protection engineer that is out of Chicago that deals with these exclusively, so that when it does come, if it does come, that I'm making the right decisions as the fire chief through the permitting process. That's what I know today. I would tell you lithium-ion batteries for the fire service is one of our main concerns right now. It is emerging, it's very difficult. We've already had several just home fires from lithium-ion batteries, so this is, in my opinion, one of our hottest topics. biggest risk that we face. And we are doing our best to stay in front of this and stay educated to protect our community.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, let's do a couple questions to Ms. Matheny, and then we'll move on. Okay.
Yeah, again, I appreciate your perspective on that. I also appreciate your mention of NFPA 855.
Yes, sir.
Which is a very specific and comprehensive and detailed plan for this type of installation. Is what I want to know is are you in the county committed to adopting NFPA 855 in its entirety as a minimum requirement for approval of the plans?
That would be I can't speak on behalf of the county, but I can speak on behalf of the fire district, that it would be our intent to enforce the full of NFPA 855.
Does that make you the authority having jurisdiction?
We are already the authority having jurisdiction over fire codes and fire protection.
Okay, so you will be the authority having jurisdiction as it's stated within NFPA.
As the fire code
855.
official.
As it's stated within NFPA 855, you will be the authority having jurisdiction to assure that all those guidelines and all those preventive measures are met prior to any approval going forward.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
And that's how it currently stands today.
Okay, thank you.
Next question. Okay.
Yeah, quick question. Can a halon suppression system be used or AFFF to fight a fire?
AFFF could not. I don't want to speak on the halon system. Potentially could, but from my understanding and the research, and this is emerging research, I want everybody to know there's lots of research going on right now in suppression systems, but my understanding is halon would not be effective either. But an AFFF system, I can assure you, would not be. There are some other dry chemicals suppression systems that could be utilized, but AFFF would not.
So how long would this, if one caught on fire, how long would it burn? Because I think people need to know how long will they have to evacuate their homes
I
and
can't
schools or
I
anything
can't
like
answer that question. I have no idea, other than the design of the UL testing, to my knowledge right now, is that if a battery, and they call them a runaway incident, if it were to catch on fire inside the container, as long as a door was not opened up or any air was introduced in it, then it would be contained to that one container. That's the research from a laboratory. When you introduce real-world elements into that, I don't want to predict what could happen. Is that fair enough? I don't want to predict what could happen, but I would be prepared for the emergency response perspective to protect the entire area.
Didn't that happen in Stratford just recently?
That was a different technology. Yeah.
I can speak a little to that. So it will vary by the specific equipment that is installed. So typically what you've maybe seen is these instances where I say, oh, this thing burned for 24 hours or 48 hours, something like that. And that's because that fire was being fought with water, exactly the way that he's saying they will not fight it. And that is the best practice now, is to let these combust rather quickly. So we're talking scale of hours, not days or anything like that, if you've heard that before. But it will vary by the exact model and make of the equipment that's installed.
And I got 3 answers. One, they would either, there's a hydrant located on Old Prospect Road, is the closest one. I don't want to rely on that hydrant. That's a hydrant that we rely on exclusively for the south end of our district. So in my professional opinion, and again, I haven't seen the plans yet, so I don't want to go off and state anything incorrect, but that would not be an adequate level of protection. The other response I received was they would run a new hydrant line, a new supply line through the area, so there would be hydrants located on the site, okay? And then the third would be to build a pond that we could draft off of, and although it may meet the NFPA requirements, I would push back on that quite a bit. But I'll let you guys respond to that, because that was the question I had as well.
Yeah, so we had a couple options that we posed there. You know, I think if we can meet the requirements and get it approved, we'll do whatever it is that we need to do to satisfy y'all and to satisfy the fire chief. So if we don't want to do one option, we want to do something else, then we can certainly do that. One way that it's done frequently, if we can't actually get a water line to site or there's not hydrants there, is instead of pulling from a pond, we'll actually install a water tank. So have a 30,000 gallon tank filled with water sitting on site, and that can be used to fight the fire, adequately per the chief.
So you're saying that your company is going to pay for the cost of putting in all the infrastructure for this plant, and that the county taxpayer is not going to have to absorb any of it?
Of course.
And you're going to fix the roads after they've been destroyed
Absolutely.
by construction?
Yeah, so a road
And
use.
we're going to have to maybe look at a water tower tank on top of the facility?
So the water tank.
Destroying our view?
So first off, the county won't be paying for anything for this project. We would pay for everything. We'll pay for the water. We'll pay for all the improvements to whatever, roads need to be improved for our construction. Per a road use agreement, if anything is damaged, we have to put it back to, to that status or better. So wherever it is, it will be what it is currently or better, and the water tank will be on the ground as well, so you won't be seeing it up in the air. Answers here, but we are in process of a sound study that's going on right now. It's pretty standard for these projects to model that and to show how the sound propagates. I don't want to speak to the results right now because we don't have them currently, but how this would usually go in a situation for usually around 200, 300, 400 feet away from a site this size. The sound would usually be mitigated down to a 35, 40 dBA, which there is no sound ordinance here, but if there were, that would be well under any national sound ordinance, to build anything from an industrial park or otherwise.
And just a follow-up question, do you have water-cooled containers instead of air-cooled?
Yeah, so we haven't picked the final technology yet of which actual manufacturer we're choosing. So if it is a water-cooled container, the sound would be much lower. So if you have an air-cooled container, you got the HVAC system. That will be louder due to the HVAC, the mini AC unit sitting on each container. But we haven't made that determination yet.
Does the sound study include the effects on wildlife of the sound, or just the measurements of the sound?
The sound study just shows the measurements of what's nearby. So it will show you.
Anything on wildlife impacts?
We've done extensive studies on the actual area and what species are there or what is surrounding, and everything has come back clean of no concern on the environmental front, and we have those reports that we're able to share.
All right, very good. Thank you. So I think the next step is we do have some people that have never spoken before, maybe they weren't there at the first two meetings. So the first one I'll call up is Mr. Downing. If he can come up. Now, here's the deal. We've been spending more than 3 minutes on these. If we continue to do this, we're not going to get very many more people. We were already through the first hour. So what now? We probably need to start timing and trying to keep 3 minutes or so.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
So, not being a prophet nor the son of a prophet, I think the likelihood of those who are opposed having their mind changed in the next 2 hours by wonderful answers that are given by our guests, I would predict that to be fairly low probability. Secondly, in the final analysis, this is not a public opinion issue in this sense. We have to make a decision. And I have, on occasion, in my almost 8 years here, I have voted for things that the residents in the area were not pleased with because I felt that it was the right decision. I have voted in other ways, and sometimes one way and the other commissioners the other way. My point is,
when the three of us feel like we have received enough information to make the decision that we're mandated to make, then I would suggest we make it. Because I think in 2 hours, we're not going to change opinions. And we'll be right back to the three of us making that. I don't say that to shut off discussion, and I certainly don't say that to shut off the opportunity for these folks to offer answers. But I'm telling you, being somewhat a student of people and mass groupings, again, I don't think that those answers, if they're perfectly given and perfectly correct, will sway the opinion of the folks that are there. So I'm just saying this to say, gentlemen, that when we think when we think that we have had adequate information that the commission can make a decision, I would recommend we make it and not tie up people for extra time if we don't think that's really going to change our opinion. Changing their opinion might be good. It doesn't change the fact they don't make the decision. We make the decision. So for me, I would say when the two of you, myself, when we feel like we've got enough information, we can make a decision, then a motion can be made. If it doesn't get a second, it fails, and we keep on talking. But if it gets a second and we vote either way, the decision's made. And then we all live with that. But that's our task as commissioners. Now, on the other hand, I can sit here with the best of them. My seat's got pretty good padding on it, and so I can sit here till noon or after or whatever I need to do. But I don't want to do that. I don't want to tie up the good time of good people if we are ready to make a decision. So that's all I'm going to say. And if you all are not, Mr. Morse, you're the presiding commissioner, so I defer to you.
And I do understand what Commissioner Blue said, but I'm a little bit different in my thought process. So out of the courtesy for everyone that came today, some had to drive further, make exceptions with their schedule, get off work or whatever they've done. I at least want to listen to new people who have never spoken before, whether they came to a meeting or didn't come to a meeting. I have some people that contacted me that says that they have new information. They spent time researching that, and I think that we need those people to be able to speak and answered from those people. As I said, you know, some of the things that's over and over and over again, we've already heard that, and your mind's probably not going to change. Commissioner Jackson, what do you think?
I would agree with that. I mean, to convince someone against their will is to have them of the same opinion still. So I don't know that that's going to work. But I do want to hear a little bit more from, you know, some of the people that are directly involved. If the representative of Liberty Utilities would like to speak, I'd love to hear their comment. If the ambulance district is here, who's responsible for, you know, a portion of the public safety, they're here. If they have an opinion and they would like to present that, I would like to hear that. I want to hear everyone's opinions, but again, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, and let's move forward with that. I'm prepared to make a motion if the time gets to that point, or listen to additional testimony.
Subject matter expert, so thank you so much for all you have. But I did come just to learn. And if there are any questions that are specific to Liberty that you gather from the employees, or from the residents rather, I'd be happy to take those back to subject matter experts and see if I can find an answer for you. But I do want to reiterate what you said. This was a decision that the company made with the Southwest Power Pool. So the Southwest Power Pool is a major source of energy supplied for co-ops and for private utilities. And so this really was above our head. It wasn't a relationship with the distribution lines that serve your community homes. It's this business decision that's far above our head.
So there's no contractual agreement between Liberty Utilities and the BESS system?
Again, I'm not a subject matter expert.
Okay.
I think there is some type of a contract that occurs so that they can pull the source from the substation. But again, that is something that's dictated by the Southwest Power Pool.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
And I didn't mean to leave out Jared Taylor, who's here with Eric Burleson's office, our great congressman. So if you have any opinions, or the congressman has any opinions, please feel free also. Sorry, I put you on the spot. He's giving me the evil eye there.
Our grid is unstable, and it needs help. So this kind of project probably is not a bad idea. Where it's at, I'm not excited about. You know, if it was in Nebraska in the middle of a 2,000 acre field, I'd be a little easier about it. I'm just not really excited about where it's at. And, there's a lot of unknowns, and that always scares us emergency management directors. We like to know what's going on. But I don't know, I could go either way, to be honest with you. But I can certainly see all these folks' concerns, and they're valid. They're very valid. And Chief brings up some good points. So here, I'm not a subject matter expert, so I might not be the best person to ask.
All right, thank you.
You know, I want to point out, because I've had several emails, I'm sure the other two commissioners have too, concerning first responders, EMS, every law enforcement, sheriff's department, the city police, everything that's involved. And to let you know, we've had people send me emails and say, where's the plan? What have you done? What's your response? How are you going to do it? And have you practiced? Have you done this, done that? No, we've not done any of that, although I will tell you this, and I will never change my mind. Christian County has the best EMS, the ambulance services, the fire department, the law enforcement, Phil Amtower. These people in Christian County aren't just the best in Christian County, they are the best in the state. Phil Amtower, Emergency Development Director, he actually has people from all 50 states come to Springfield to clinics. So does the ambulance and all the people. They are extremely smart. And if we decided to do this project, we've got how many years? Because you're not going to be building this thing in the next 6 months, right? You're going to be building this thing, and it might be about 2.5, 3 years from now that we might see this. We, as a county, the officials would be able to have all kinds of plans and drills. We're not going to waste our time now having planning meetings when we don't even know if we're going to pass it or not. And so that's why we're doing that. I have complete confidence. I won't be here by that time, but I have complete confidence that our officials that are in charge of emergencies can handle it, okay?
Can I speak to that? Because I left something off
Yes.
in mine. And Director Amtower is a good mentor and friend of mine, but if there is a tornado that's nearby, the fire district will be there. Can I say that? Secondly, part of the NFPA 55 is what they call a hazard mitigation analysis or a preparedness response plan. Is part of the NFPA 55. That was one of our questions that we've had with them, and I can assure you that is a requirement. There will be a hazard mitigation analysis that would be conducted as this is built. As Director Thompson said, it would involve EMS, police, the sheriff's office, emergency management would all be part of this planning and mitigation analysis so that if a flood, a tornado, an earthquake, a hurricane, solar eclipse, I'm trying to think of all the other things we planned for.
Earthquake. If a hurricane hits us, we're in bad shape.
Welcome to my world. Fireworks, what can we keep going? You name it, we would plan and analyze and do our due diligence as professionals to make sure that we're prepared and ready to respond. So I just want to clarify that.
We could even have terrorism actually cause a problem.
That is actually.
So that actually is a problem that we could face in this country.
We want to thank you for allowing us this time. We appreciate the efforts you're putting into it. We found out about it through Facebook. We are kind of shocked by how little information was placed out into the community and how few people were reached in the process for something that's going to affect the entire county. We had to dig pretty hard to find out information about Black Mountain and their home company. A direct quote from a paper in Wisconsin says that in the past 2 years, Austin-based Black Mountain has sold several BESS facilities under development in Texas to institutional investors. The company was founded in 2021, and it's Houston-based Black Mountain founded it, which is substantial oil and gas operations. They have 30 projects under development, but it hasn't completed one yet. This is a direct quote from this article. We don't have any operational facilities ourselves, a quote from one of Black Mountain's people. This is also very new technology, so there are only so many in the nation, but there sure are some around. On their website, their leadership team claims over 100 years of experience. There are 11 people on that team, not a lot of experience. The business seems to be structured around purchasing land, beginning the development, never putting a shovel to the project, and selling it. The last couple projects were held less than 8 months, sold to UBS in Canada. UBS is Union Bank of Switzerland. The plan indicates building will begin in 2026, perhaps. That's more than 8 months. Okay, the battery energy storage system they propose is supposed to be small. Depending on who they sell it to, there'll be no benefit locally. We've talked about the jobs. We've talked about they'll need to build a small substation according to page 6 of the staff report. That small substation will be less than 45 feet tall. That's a 4-story building. That does not count the tank that we're talking about for water sources. We were surprised. We've talked about wetland habit species. We've had as many as 6 proposed endangered species or proposed endangered species, including snapping turtles, monarch butterflies, 4 kinds of bats. The engineering and planning design recommended that equipment must be raised a minimum of 1 foot above the 100-year water surface elevation. Not seen much of that. We know that site varies according to 2 different reports, either 40 feet in height or 70 feet in height, depending on where they're measuring the heights. In Ozark, anybody that's got property here knows where the water flows. We know how quickly it can wash out concrete slabs that these batteries are supposed to be sitting on. We know that it will fill in the low spots. We know where the sinkholes are at if you've got property near a sinkhole, and we know how quickly these fill up. Okay, the design standards, they almost are non-existent. Even when we reference NFPA 55, they are changing NFPA.
Okay, ma'am, we'll wrap it up.
All right.
So 15 more seconds.
It has changed multiple times, so it's not complete. They've got 5 myths of best, which include that those standards are set, that we have fire methodologies. We have battery inefficiency. Doesn't exist. They can't recycle. According to the staff report, they do. Recycle methods aren't. They haven't even picked the kind of battery they want. We have safety concerns. Most of what I can find is on insurance risk mitigation pages. Does not provide, they have not provided it because they have no plans.
Thank you very much. That's some good points. So we're going to
I appreciate it.
Quote unquote selling projects. With the complexity of these projects and $100+ million capex, it's industry standard to bring in partners. You have various groups that are good at one thing. We develop projects. We might bring in a group that has financing. That's what they're good at. You might bring in a group that's good at construction. So really, in all these large capex projects, you are bringing in partners. So that's what you're seeing in those articles. And I mean, UBS Bank is a Swiss bank, but it's one of the biggest banks in the country. So just want to clear the air that we do continue to have skin in the game, and that we're not just selling these and, taking a hike back down to Texas. We're still, involved throughout the process, and, I don't know when that article was written, but we do have 7 projects under construction. One that just completed construction, in the next 30 days, it'll go into operations. So, yeah, just wanted to kind of clear the air on that we're not just going and flipping things. We're coming to you to, we're going to be a part of the project, and you have skin in the game.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you do with the batteries when they need recycled? And I ask this question because in my hometown of Viburnum, Missouri, which is about 3 hours from here, they have a battery recycling center, and it is horrible. The community hates it. It smells from 10-mile radius, and it's terrible. So I want to know where your batteries are going to go when they need recycled.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a landfill that we're going to need to find in the area. I mean, we're not going to.
A landfill?
I don't know.
Lithium?
No, that's a completely valid question. It's something that the whole industry is looking at right now, right? All these projects that are coming online are coming online in the past couple of years. They haven't reached the end of their life, so those are going to be 20 years from now that are.
But you're just 5 years. You're
Sorry.
want an answer.
Can I? Sorry. Do you want me to try to answer it as best as I can?
Yeah, let's answer the question.
Yeah. So I'm happy to hear a response. I'm not trying to fight you here. I'm just trying to help you, give you the information that I have and answer the question as best as I can for you. So part of NFPA 55 is a decommissioning plan. So within that decommissioning plan, we list out how we're going to be recycling these batteries. There's companies all over the country right now that are looking into battery recycling and how that's going to be done. If there's not a we're not building a battery recycling plant. So if you're worried about a battery recycling plant being in your guys' community, that we're not going to be building that. So that's not a concern there.
No, but I was wanting to know, it's going to affect some community where your battery's going to go, because it's affected my hometown greatly.
Yeah, we don't have a specific location where we're recycling these batteries right now, but the same as the batteries that we're building in our facilities, you're using in your cars, and you're using in your phones, and you're using in basically everything you do. So batteries needing to be recycled is not specific to our issue. There's actually batteries in everything that we have all over this room that need to be recycled. That is not just our problem, that's actually a problem for the whole country.
Okay, I've heard a comment twice today. This is what people are looking for. What people are looking for. We're not, but okay. If this thing is so important, why does it need to be in our neighborhood? With all the open lands available in Missouri and other places, why is this in our front door, in our back door? Could it be built somewhere else if it's so important?
Okay, good question.
Lynn, I just want to say one other thing in regards to this. There's tens of thousands of acres available in southwest Missouri. Why do they want to build it? There's a school a mile and a half north of this, big residential area just to the east of this. And my question is, if something goes wrong, and there's a saying, what can go wrong will go wrong. There's going to be problems with this down the road, I assure you. If our property values go down 50%, is Black Mountain willing to pay us fair market value for our homes and property?
Well, just on the property value piece, so Stu Stenger, who's the developer that we're buying the property from, that was a big concern for him at first. And what we talked with him about is a lot of our projects in Texas have actually encouraged industrial development. We have a project that's right next to some of the biggest LNG facilities in Texas, in Mont Belvieu outside of Houston. And they have actually encouraged us to bring in these facilities near these plants to continue reliable power. So this.
Why are you not building these at these power plants that are being shut down?
Well,
it's already.
Well, I mean, we have facilities in Texas that are actually in neighborhoods, built neighborhoods that are surrounding it. In Killeen, Texas, we have a fire. The police station is actually within 500 feet of the facility. And it's a much bigger battery storage facility. It's actually 200 megawatts as opposed to 75.
What if our values of our homes goes down 50%?
Well, like I said, a lot of studies have been that it encourages development around these. Yeah.
Just a quick question. So I thought I heard earlier, I may have misheard, the BlackRock investors get to enjoy federal subsidies, so they get to tap in to that money, federal money, which is us, to fund their project. So my question is, if it's such a great idea, why don't you stand on your own free market and not ask for any help from the federal government? And let your investors bear the upfront investment costs.
To that point, on the incentives, the national incentives, the Inflation Reduction Act is what you guys are referring to, which gives investment tax credits to renewable energy projects, including battery storage, in certain parts of the country. This is not going to get those subsidies. We're not in the area to get them. I encourage everyone to look up the map from the Department of Energy to find these subsidies. They show the areas where you're going to get them and where you don't get them. Our investors do not get any tax subsidies from the federal government for this project. So I hope that answers a lot of your questions on that. In terms of
but the buyers do, who buy the facility, don't
no, they won't get the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits because of the location that it's in. I encourage everyone to do research on that as well.
Is that because we're in Missouri and not in Illinois?
There are certain areas in Missouri that I think do qualify that are closer to the coal plant retirements.
What's that benefit being? I mean, typically we want to go in those areas, so we're not an area, and that's a large private area. So what is the benefit?
Yeah, in general, we don't need to be in those areas to make these a viable project. More than half of our projects aren't. Well, maybe around half of them aren't in these areas. So that's not part of our siting thesis. The reason why we chose this area, we do a comprehensive analysis of the grid and where we can make the most benefit to the grid, to the electric grid with our project. This does benefit the electric grid. It makes the grid more reliable. It allows the grid operators to efficiently use the electricity that is generated in this area and in the greater Missouri area. It allows them to efficiently store the power when it's not needed and use it when it's later needed. So this is a technology that's new across the country because of the decreasing prices in battery storage technology. If they could have had this 20 years ago because of the technology, they would have. This is a comprehensive technology that improves the grids nationwide, and if you look it up, they're going on everywhere. So
technology's cool. Find an industrial spot. Just go find it.
I hope that answers your question.
Real estate appraiser. I do commercial and some residential, but
Can't
mostly
hear you.
commercial.
Can't
hear you. Oh, you can't hear me? Sorry. And I want to address the property value issue. There's all kinds of research that substations, utilities, utility power lines, anything related to this kind of infrastructure does affect property values anywhere from 10 to 44%, depending on your proximity to the plant. Now, the reason for that is the noise, it's an eyesore. The perceived risk in this particular case is great. And what happens is when you have a situation or a home near one of these types of facilities, you have a pool of buyers, right? So we live in normal neighborhoods with no external obsolescence is what that's called, affecting your property values. External obsolescence depreciates your property. And if you live in an area where you have none, you're going to enjoy good property values and normal increases like everybody else. When you're near one of these stations, your pool of buyers is reduced. And what that does is it reduces your property value because now you have fewer people who are even interested in looking at that piece of property. So this and how appraisers, what we prefer to do in getting our market research is to look at the market. What is the market doing? So right here we have a pool of buyers sitting in this room. And this facility now, we only have one person out of this pool of people that would consider living next to it, the one in favor because of economic development. So basically, your home value just decreased because nobody in this room wants to buy your property but one person. So that's how it affects property values, and it will affect property values all in that whole segment of Ozark. And I don't agree with that developer. He's gonna have a hard time selling somebody a $500,000 or $600,000 house that sits next to a battery storage facility. And a substation.
All right.
Lithium batteries are a problem. I mean, we've had federal laws for years about shipping lithium batteries through airlines. I work with the largest shipper in the United States, so I have familiarity with that. So I think my concern is that these things could potentially blow up, and we have no idea what that ramifications could be. And to be able to contain that is, I think, is a huge unknown. I mean, how large are these batteries? How much lithium-ion are in them? And you know, how do we contain that to keep people safe? And number two, where does the material for these ion batteries come from after we've pillaged hundreds of millions of tons of earth? What's the source of those batteries?
Okay, response?
Yeah, I'm going to start off with the first comment about the batteries. These particular units use lithium iron phosphate, which is a slightly different chemistry than what you're probably used to and what's in your phone, which is a lithium-ion battery. They're much less prone to any type of explosion. They really can't explode in that same sense. I mean, there's certain circumstances where there can be gas buildup and things like that, and they're contained within racks that will then provide additional containment. And then I spoke earlier about the deflagration panels, that if the gases do build up, they'll be released so that they don't explode. That's not to say that it's impossible for there to be an explosion, but it's to say that it's highly unlikely and has been thought about pretty heavily. And one of the ways that's done is through the UL standard that we had talked about earlier. 9540 requires that these manufacturers, when they assemble one of these packs, they will need to place one of them in the field, and they'll have to place ones nearby and monitor around these units, and will intentionally cause a thermal runaway event to see what happens. That will allow it to be certified for UL 9540, and the point of that is to make sure that that fire cannot propagate to another unit or propagate beyond the property line to other buildings or things like that. So we do know how they act in a fire because they literally go out and light them on fire and see how they act. So I understand the concern, but it's not particularly likely, I would say. Is there a second?
On where the minerals come from, where we're mining from, you know, basically all battery chemistries, all minerals for all the batteries are 98% are coming from China. That's for the whole world. Just to be fair, that's true. All the batteries in your phone, all the electronics in your phone, all that's made in China. Yeah. And there is a push, obviously, through the Inflation Reduction Act, actually, to bring that production back to America.
And I'll also note
that's the case for all batteries.
This particular type of battery, this LFP, it stands for iron phosphate. Iron and phosphate are heavily mined in the U.S., so actually a lot more of these batteries will be U.S. sourced. The lithium itself, yes, comes from several places around the world. There is a mine that's trying to open in Nevada to have a more domestic source for lithium, but yeah, a lot of it comes from Chile, China, and a few other countries, because that's where it's active.
In Missouri, any of those mines in Missouri?
Lithium mine?
I don't know if there's been
There are
reserves
Arkansas.
identified.
Arkansas is, Exxon just proved, well, they're actually drilling for it and extracting it through brine water. But Black Mountain, we actually just started a lithium company as well. So no, it's in Texas. But no, they are starting to mine a lot of it here in the U.S.
Okay, anybody else? We're getting to the end. Anybody else that's new, has never spoken before? Okay, come on up. How many more new people? How many more people have never spoken before? Raise your hand real quick.
And wants to speak.
Who?
And that they want to speak.
Oh, and want to speak, yeah.
I'm not new, but I wanted to say, ask one question.
Well, let's ask this gentleman here first. Okay.
Last year, there were 3 best thermal events and fires in New York that burned 4 or 5 days. One was in the grounds of a school, and 2 were in rural wooded areas near state parks. One which was near the Canadian border. One was found to be the result of electrical interruption and lightning strike, and 2 were attributed to heat. Now, we believe here in Missouri, we can get over 100 degrees and 100% humidity a lot of days, and that can cause a lot of problems. As a result of this stuff, the fires in New York, Kathy Hochul, the governor, created a working group tasked to ensuring the safety of battery storage systems across New York. Some communities are restricting these facilities to industrial areas and have calls all across the nation for moratoriums on this unproven technology.
Okay.
Batteries are made of, and the neurotoxins that they have. And if there was a fire or anything like that, what it's gonna do when it gets into the air and people get neurotoxin. Because I've had a friend that her husband has passed away from it. It wasn't pretty when he was exposed to the same type of chemical that these batteries are made of. And this is what you're expecting everyone to live with and be exposed to. It's not good.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
When there have been quite a few studies done on what the off-gassing is during a thermal event, a fire, for these batteries. There are 2 particular concerns that were specific to batteries as far as specific gases that will come off. Both of those have been shown to dissipate within a few feet of the where the actual battery that's on fire is. So again, we were addressing that by having large setbacks, 100-foot setbacks instead of just a few feet that the studies show that at which point these gases dissipate to a level that it doesn't cause concern as far as health concern. There are additional off-gassing that happens from the fire itself. Now, this is mainly plastics. There's circuit boards in these things, etc. As we kind of discussed before, you're going to find this in any fire. If your car's on fire, it has lots of plastic in it, and it has lots of circuitry in there. There's all these kinds of things. It would be the same effect if you were to breathe in smoke from one of these fires versus a car on fire, your house on fire, or something like that. So it's important that, as with any fire, that we try to get people away from it and allow those gases to dissipate. But other than a couple specific gases that have been shown to dissipate in relatively short distance, there isn't a significant difference between a fire in a battery unit and a fire that you would experience in your community anywhere else.
Okay, thank you very much. So, have you spoken before?
No.
Okay, come on up.
Well, I just would like to know procedurally.
Come on up here. I tell you what, these meetings are live. And not only are they live, people are going to be watching them 24 hours a day for several days and weeks. And I want to brag on Mr. Bill and Mr. John, our IT people. We didn't used to have our own IT department, and now we have our own Christian County IT department, saving thousands of dollars a month and a year in having our people compared to what we used to pay for outside sources. So it's very important for people to hear what we're saying, because we're providing transparency to you all.
Well, and I appreciate that. Procedurally,
how do we end this meeting to get a vote?
Well, pretty quick.
I just have to get the microphone away from him.
And I have one last question, and I will not be a deterrent for that. So, Miss Carolyn, as I was studying last night, I had never really thought about it too much, and I really appreciate you being at the first meeting. And I want people to hear this, because this is a learning process. This is a learning process for me. It's a learning process for the other commissioners and for everyone out here. Not only just for the consulting people, but for all the citizens. And one of the things I heard in that first meeting is the fact that, and I thought for sure, and now I need to ask you, I thought for sure out of all those great questions, and you were trying to do your best at answering them, and I really appreciate that. But I thought we said, and I need to know, and I think the people need to know, did we send you all, we had a whole bunch of emails and questions. And did we send those to you where you could, two things, answer the people, and then I asked, not only do you answer the people, but you send it to the commissioners where we would know what the same answer was that the citizens had. Did we drop the ball?
Q&A that we did know.
We never sent you the emails?
I got I think one email.
Because I was understanding, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but I'm just telling you, this is a learning process. I should have followed it and made sure, but I'm not the one that said the emails is going to come. But we talked about that, and I will apologize right now. If you didn't get those answers, because they were important, and we should have got the same answers, and it may not be your fault. It may be our fault.
We did officially address some questions before the first meeting, which I think were posted online. And I think a lot of the questions that we're getting are similar in nature to those, but we're obviously happy to answer any
And a lot of them were redundant, but here's the thing. I didn't think about it too much because I've been still getting emails. So as I continue to get emails, I study that and look at that. But now I'm realizing that, you know what? I never got the answers to the first set of emails that I thought that we had, because honestly, I got them. They're a whole bunch. And I thought that someone from our county would be sending those to you. And I don't have them. They don't have them. And the citizens didn't get them. But I think we've heard a lot and may be sufficient. But I just want to point that out.
And I did take notes, and I did meet with the team, and we went over the notes, and we felt like that we would be able to answer the questions today. So.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, I'll take some responsibility that we didn't get those. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to entertain, if you guys are ready, I'll entertain
a couple comments. I just wanted to thank you guys for coming up here and answering the questions. I wish you'd have been able to be here at the meeting last month. It would have maybe delayed some of the process and some of the anxiety of the community to gain the answers that you guys have provided here today. Pardon me. I also want to, go over a few things that are concerns to me. This new technology is very new. It's in its infancy stages. We just don't have a lot of the answers that we need. As a community, there's a huge amount of concerns about whether it be fires or flooding or leaking batteries and the containment zone. And you're talking about a pond that would catch everything, but unless you've concreted the entire property and have a containment basin made out of concrete, it still could get into the ground should there be an event there, and that's a huge concern to a lot of people. I understand that you're going to be creating some jobs. I don't know that it'll be 100 jobs out there. It seems a little high of an estimation that 100 jobs of construction, but it could be. I don't like having people tell me, think of all the sales tax or property tax that would be generated in the schools. Think about the schools. I do think about the schools. I think about them a lot. But the fact that there is a governor candidate that's running on the premise of eliminating personal property tax, I can't take that into consideration as a revenue source. And I'm not going to be bought or have that threat of money hamper my ability to make a good decision. So my citizens are worth more than money, honestly. And because of all of those things together, the new technology, the area in which it's in, the topography, all the unknown answers, the instability of the revenue stream, that you might make a decision based off money instead of off lives in our community. I make a motion that we deny the application.
Okay, we have a motion to deny the application. We need a second.
I second the motion. I want to say one thing. I want to make sure, first of all, how much I appreciate you coming. I want you to understand why I'm seconding this motion. I'm speaking to you all now. I think one of the responsibilities that you had coming in were to anticipate every question that's been asked. These are not strange questions to me. I could have written down all these questions before anyone ever asked a single one. So I think your responsibility was to anticipate that. Answer every question before people ask the question. That is not what happened. We started where we began, at least with me, there was so many answers that I don't have the answer to that question, but I'll get back to you. Okay, get the answer before you get to that point. Secondly, even today, you would impress me with data. I'm not a scientist, whatever. I am a mathematician. And so you talked about the overloading of the system. That's not exactly the language you used, over by that plant. Give me the numbers. Compare them to the others in the state of Missouri and say, this one is at this load capacity, this one's at this load capacity, yours is at this load capacity. That would impress me. It didn't happen. And even here today, there's times when it said, man, I wish we would have the expert from this area in here. My whole point is, I've seconded this motion, not because of internet searches by these people. I love the people of Christian County, I love these people. But I don't trust the internet as far as I can't throw it. And so that's not it. I have a great compassion concerning property values, but I almost never deal with a situation that somebody doesn't say that's going to lower our property values. We see that on cell towers, people that use the cell phone all day long, and they need that connectivity, but they don't want it to where they can see it from their back deck. I understand that, but that's not why I'm seconding it. I'm seconding it because of uncertainty that I think still in the entire industry that you represent, and in the fact that I feel like that almost all of these questions could have been addressed up front in an excellent document, and I think that you failed to provide that for me as a commissioner.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. I'm going to make a few comments too. Missouri is the show me state, and there's reasons for that, and I'm really proud to be in Missouri. 6.2 million people live in our state, and maybe a little bit over that now, but not much more. But we are the second fastest growing county in the state. There's reasons for that. There's a lot of reasons. I don't know if there's 50 people in here or whatever. There's 50 reasons. There's all these reasons. Every one of those people are reasons to live in this state. For you guys, I really respect you, and I respect what you're doing. We're very conservative in this area, and your technology is very new. That's probably your detriment. Not your fault, but the technology is new. What I kept spending my time looking at is finding out there's not a lot of answers, and I think that you've done your best and what you could help you answer the questions. But there's too many unknowns because this is too new. 5 years from now, if you had chosen a different location, then we might be ready for it in Missouri. But I don't think in Missouri we're going to be ready for it right now. That's what I based my decision on, is the fact that too many risks, not enough complete answers right now because the technology is too new. It's going to get better. It's going to improve. And there's still a lot of us around here that don't like the new green energy and all the things that's going on. And so we'll continue to see who's running this country and what way we're going to go. And here in Southwest Missouri, We just don't see the problems that we do, and that's why we live here in this area. So I'm ready to call vote. Roll call vote.
Western Commissioner Hosey Blue.
Aye.
Eastern Commissioner Bradley Jackson.
Aye.
Presiding Commissioner Lynn Morris.
Aye. Thank you very much. I